Good morning and welcome to this new event of the Adriatic-Ionian Festival of Theatre on Intangible Heritage. The roundtable organized by the University of Salento, Italy, on social and cultural relations across the Adriatic Sea, which is made within the frame of the international project Adnich, Adriatic Network of Artistic Production for the Development and Enhancement of Intangible Cultural Heritage, supported by the European Union program Interreg IPA CBC Italy, Albania, Montenegro. The project is promoted by Royal Theatre Zeschi Dom of Montenegro in partnership with International Theatre Institute Italia, the Department of History, Society and Human Studies of University of Salento, Italy, the University of Arts of Tirana, Albania, Cendra Event, Albania. I'm very pleased to give the floor to Professor Mariano Longo, Dean of the Department of History, Society and Human Studies of University of Salento. Please, Professor Longo. Thank you.
Salve a tutti, welcome everybody. I don't know actually whether I should speak Italian or English. Forse avevamo optato per l'uso della lingua italiana, insomma, non lo so cosa preferite.
It's better English because it's the official language.
Okay, it is the official language, and so we have to subdue to the rules of those who give us the money to bring out this interesting project. A couple of information. The project is a very interesting one because it tries actually to combine a number of skills and knowledge coming from different areas, such as theater, for example, anthropology, sociology, a combination of a plurality of different approaches, which are not combined because of the idea that interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary projects are better, but because actually we need to combine skills and knowledge in order to bring about cooperation, integration among different patterns, working and living in different countries. As I say often, I may actually see Albania from my house. I live on the 4th floor of an apartment block in Lecce, and one of the windows actually gives me the opportunity to see when the weather is clear, Albania, and regardless of that, Albania is far away, actually. We may think of the place, but we don't know very much about the people living there, regardless of the fact that in these last decades, cultural, commercial, economic relationships and political ones have become more and more solid. So Montenegro is another place which we know of, but which we seldom visit because, for example, we go to Greece, which is an unusual destination of our trips or travels, rather than Montenegro or Albania. Nonetheless, we share a plurality of attitudes, cultural heritage, material cultural heritage as well, folklore, a plurality of different elements which we may perceive actually as ours. So the very possibility to work together is not only pleasure, but the occasion to the chance we have to perceive the fact that we share a common cultural heritage, regardless of the fact that the Adriatic Sea is perceived either as a barrier or as a possible way of communication. The project was, as far as the University of Lecce is concerned, an attempt to think about alterity and diversity. And we decided to work in a small town close to Lecce, in the outskirts of Lecce, actually, which is called San Cesario, where Astragali is also a place where they do a number of activities. And the idea was to show how integration is possible regardless of diversity. And this is the reason why we have worked with immigrants, a community of, I think, no more than 6,000 people, San Cesario, as a small community within of immigrants, which integrates or attempt to integrate with the locals anyway. And women, today is, I think, the International Women's Day. So actually, the connection is casual but evident. And we try to understand how integration is possible, starting from cultural common roots. So it was a very interesting attempt to combine a number of different processes of inclusion and exclusion. And the idea was that these processes are actually the same anywhere, and we all are experiencing the same processes connected, for example, with the integration of women within the labor market and society. And so it was actually very interesting to understand how, even in the very south of Italy, modernity and elements of the past combined together, giving us the possibility to understand how modernity declines in a number of different ways. There is not one modernity, but it may be declined in a variety of different ways, connected to our cultural heritage, to our traditional values, and all the rest of it. So I think the empirical investigation may be of some help to all the pattern of the project, because regardless of the fact that it is a sociological investigation brought about by a group of sociologists or social scientists, it tries to tackle a number of questions which are of common interest anyway. We are preparing the book, which should be ready in a couple of weeks. And of course, it will be our contribution to the project, our main contribution to the project. And I think it may be the common ground from which to start to elaborate new forms of collaboration and new projects. I don't think I may stay until the end of the presentation, the conference, because I have a couple of things to do, but it was anyway a pleasure to be with all of you, patents, friends, and people with whom it was a pleasure to work and collaborate. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Longo. We are following the program scheduled in the brochure. So it's for me now that I'm the scientific coordinator of the project, and I will try to tackle with a couple of issues that emerges from the research work, that it's a good research work that saw the participation of an Italian and an Albanian side. We have two parts of the research devoted to the gender and interethnic relations in the southern part of Italy. And then there is the second part, written by the Albanian colleagues, that is devoted to the blood vengeance. And I will let to Simone Rollo, that will speak after me, the part devoted to the gender relations, that this day it's a very important issue. And I will try to speak about two issues that are very interesting relating to my personal background. And as somebody of you know, I'm from Sardinia. And in Sardinia, we have two features that are analyzed in this research. The first is the presence of a great dimension devoted to magic and magicians, and that is the part written by the Donatis devoted to the Macaria in Salento. And then there is the juridical and sociological tradition of the blood vengeance that is similar to Albanian society. And concerning this last point, I will try to remember the first person that I met from Albania 21 years ago. He was my colleague in the Master of Isufi, and his name was Erton Kashta. He was from Scutari, and he knew very well Sardinian society because he had seen a lot of times the movie Banditi a Orgosolo, that is devoted to the blood vengeance in Sardinia. A great film by Vittorio De Seta, a great Italian filmmaker. And the original point concerning this movie is that in Sardinia, nobody talked about this movie. Person coming from Albania knew very well this film, but in Sardinia it's considered like a colonialistic approach to Sardinia. In what sense? The sense is that for Sardinian people it's very difficult to talk with people from outside the island, of course, of issues that are considered a inner dimension of the Sardinian identity. And we are closely linked to Albania because Sardinia and Albania have the same justice code, that it's a code established on the field. Why? Because they are both two agro-pastoral societies where the offenses led to the cattle in particular are considered personal offenses. And this dimension that it's considered by a lot of people from Sardinia as an archaic heritage of the past, actually it's very, very present in our psychological dimension. And reading the Albanian contribution, I was able to better understand also my cultural identity, because reading the Albanian research, I was able to understand very well what are the some of the features of we can define as the Mediterranean koine. there is like a great common place for people living around the Mediterranean, and Albania and Sardinia, that are very far in geographical terms, are very close in social and cultural terms. And this second, the second issue devoted to the magic in Salento amply revealed and demonstrated how Salento and Sardinia are very close concerning the magic and the presence of a supernatural dimension in our common life. The same term, macare or macaria, that are the translation in English is witches. In Sardinian language is maiase. There is a common root in Latin terms, and we have also all a dimension that is devoted in Sardinia to the how we can say the eye medicine. So all the kind of practice and rituals that are devoted to fight against malocchio, the bad eye. And in Sardinia and in Salento, there is this dimension that is another feature of this Mediterranean koine. And there is like, for example, in Sardinia, there is, it's considered something that is better not to speak, because it's considered also in this case as an heritage of an archaic society. But everybody believes in it. But it's difficult to talk about it. But everybody are firmly sure that it's a presence real and actually in our life. And so the research, it's the best demonstration that Mediterranean culture and the different feature that it assumed during the centuries in a different part of this basin are strictly linked, and it's important to create a place like this, like the Adnich project, but also all the cooperation, the friendships that created during these long months of collaboration. It's the demonstration, as I say, that it's useful to create a place of collaboration, because are more the things that unite us than the things that divide us. Thank you very much. And now Simone Rollo will illustrate a part of the research.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm sharing the screen, just a few slides. Oh, okay, can you see? Okay, I introduced this, this work with regard to otherness that we consider as an encounter place for diversity. The diversity could be recognized in terms of gender, age, country, religion, and so on, where the in-group identity is defined by the other group's identity. We don't know what the other, for example, the stranger, thinks about the relationship with us. And this is possible to know only through a communicative and relational exchange with extraneousness. The stranger allows us to deal with the unknown and therefore with what is not taken for granted. It can question our categories that we use to organize, to explain, to understand the world we are belonging. The present work aims to investigate the image of the other in terms of relation with the women and the immigrants. They are used in a pretextual way in order to analyze comparison between other and oneself. We have tried to work on the construction, on the thinkability of a third identity defined in the encounter, that is the third dimension. Women are an area of comparison talking about diversity because they have always been confronted with men. They have only recently received recognition on the professional, on the social levels in Italy. And this gap between men and women in society has an impact on the psychosocial woman's well-being. In fact, several studies suggest the psychological distress associated to discrimination of the woman. For example, depression, anxiety, somatic symptoms, high levels of stress, low self-esteem, low perceived social support. Therefore, it was registered that there is a sense of belonging to woman's group. The woman feels discriminated when she thinks about herself as a woman, even if she has never been personally discriminated. And this suggestion allows us to reflect on the border between woman and men, where one excludes the other with respect to gender, as lens truth may experience in the world. Here, about the immigrant, people arriving from across the border are considered different for religion, for example, color, skin, beliefs, habits. Often the immigrant is associated with a specific emotion, that is fear, an experience of rejection, and an experience of mistrust is created around the fear that impacts both the natives and the immigrants' psychosocial health. In this scenario, some dimensions are relevant and help us to reflect about the border that differentiate we from you, for example. Social capital, there is a relationship between ethnic diversity and social cohesion, where heterogeneity is strongly connected to withdrawal from collective life. In this way, the society fragmentation or social fragmentation into different membership groups has a significant negative effect on social trust as well as civic involvement. Personal value, the symbolic system have a greater force of differentiation with respect to external characteristics like the color of skin or the origin from another country. For example, Schwarz, that we know, suggests that in the European scenario, opposition to immigration probably reflects issues relating to personal protection, social security, the maintenance of norms, as well as the need to perceive tradition. At least personality traits, in fact, a personological structure characterized by openness, by friendliness, predicts positive attitudes toward immigrants and correlates negatively with prejudice towards immigrants. The image of women and immigrants was explored through narratives using focus group among adults and paintings, drawings among elementary and middle school children. Here, adopting a semiotic frame, the narration, both verbal and drawing, are the product of meanings that the participants here, the social actors, use to give sense to a phenomena with which they interface. For the study, the stimulus was, what does being a woman or immigrant mean today? Here, narrating about the woman or narrating about the immigrant becomes the narration of the other that reflects an identity definition of oneself in relation to the other. From practical plan, texts were analyzed by computerized procedure. That is, we use the lexical correspondence analysis, that is a factorial analysis, but on the words, where we extracted the principal dimension, the principal components that organize the discourses collected. Whereas the content analysis were adopted for the paintings among children. It should be noted that focus group and paintings were carried out for the image of women, while only the paintings for the image of the immigrants, but all data were collected in San Cesario. Here are the principal findings among adults, focus groups about the woman. By lexical correspondence analysis, two factorial dimensions were extracted. These factors represent the semiotic map on which the narratives are positioned. That is, each factors represent a dimension of meanings through which narrative actors produces its discourse. Each dimension of scenes as a factor is composed by two opposite polarities, negative versus positive. We interpret these polarities with respect to the words that are aggregated on the polarity. Here, the first factor is woman representation. On the negative polarity are aggregated terms that refer to a description of the woman in terms of predefined roles in the family context. The idea of static image is in reference both to family structure and to roles in the family. Therefore, there are also terms that refer to a family relationship. On the other polarity, here we have a dynamic image of woman. Here terms are referred to identity in construction, even if limited to family roles. For example, we find terms like mom or dad. Terms as to realize oneself, to express oneself, to choose, to be scared, to live, are all terms that refer to an expectation or a becoming. And in this sense, this polarity is configured as dynamic image of the woman. The second factor explains women's roles. On the negative polarity here, there are terms that refer to roles socially attributed to women. While in the opposite polarity, here there are terms that reflect more narrative centered on roles in the couple. In particular, on negative polarity, words that refer to desirable values like freedom, collaboration, occur together with words that refer to a subordinate position of the woman with respect to a partner. For example, we find words like to find time, to justify, to break up, sacrifice, jealousy, keep quiet, both in the family and in the social context. On the opposite polarity, in the positive polarity, words that refer to a function and activities, mainly in the family environment, occur with the terms man, woman, diverse, society, suggesting the different social representation of the role linked to gender. Here are the principal findings among children, not adults, but children, using paintings about women. I share just a few examples of drawing. Three principal themes were extracted. The first is the social accessibility. The woman must assume attitudes that are specific to the man in order to be accepted. We could see the Mulan example. Then the woman has a different recognition than the man. We could see in this picture the comparison of this briefcase full of banknotes for men and just a few coins for the woman. The second theme is complementarity and integration. Man and woman can meet in the diversity where one integrates the other. Here, the dimension of diversity is recognized with the two other dimensions, that is complementarity and integration. For example, man and woman are placed on the scale, and if the scale is equal, aligned, men and women have an equal weight. Children in this picture, for example, talk about differentiation and complementarity using the metaphor of gender key, where one has the key of the to the other. Metaphorically, playing together in this last picture is a moment of integration and complementarity where boy and girl play together with a ball. The last theme is stereotypes and prejudice. There are descriptions regarding gender differences. The man is the strong gender, unlike the woman who must be protected. For example, here, the man is strong, the social image, and constrained in this representation. He cannot express his emotionality here, for example, unlike the woman. The difference between man and woman is not identified in nature, but in social and cultural context. We could see the brain, the black brain here, as a damaged mind. From women to immigrants, here the principal findings among children using paintings. 4 principal themes were extracted. The first is parity and foreigner as a source of social and cultural enrichment. The sense of equality is expressed by representing many people around the world with the caption, "We are all the same. There are no differences between us." In this second picture, this Italian word uguaglianza expresses the same concept of the first picture. Then the social and cultural enrichment is well explained by the caption of the third drawing. 2 children, an Italian and a foreigner, exchange knowledge of their culture. Here, a dimension of recognition of the other is identified. That is, the stranger is recognized as a stakeholder of values different from one's, and sharing the possibility to share permits communication and relationship. That is the encounter with others. The second theme is different physical traits. Diversity here is traced referring to tangible characters. For example, the language spoken, the skin color, or more generally, the country of origin. The third theme is stranger as enemy. These findings is very interesting because in this picture, the worst scenario provides the idea of the foreigner as an enemy. The enemy is a person not to be trusted. And this concept is expressed by a line on foreigners who are greeted by a native, this red person, who hides a knife behind him. This idea is linked to stereotypes and prejudice. In fact, for example, in the second drawing, the sheet is divided in 4 parts where themes of discrimination emerge. For example, homosexuality, prostitution, immigration, or overweight people. The prejudice that creates an attitude of distancing and distrust is represented by this wall that differentiates the immigrants from the world. At least, stranger has disability. Here, the foreigner is considered as a weak person, specifically disabled on a wheelchair, who ask for help, emphasizing the diversity in behavior and opportunities. I conclude, these results highlighted how the discourses on women are organized on 2 main dimensions of meaning. The the representation of women and the representation of woman's role. On the one hand, here, women limited to cultural models, women are defined by predefined roles limited to family context. Here, the prevailing cultural model recognizes the woman in her role as wife, as mother, and another definition of woman is not possible. For example, woman as worker or as friend. It's interesting to note that when the woman proposes conditions that don't respect this cultural model, she must justify herself with a sense of guilt, which amplifies the experience of feeling out of rule. The image of woman referred a weak person which must be protected and through which man can show his strength and superiority. Here, a key to read this result could be strong self versus weak other. On the other hand, woman in progress, narration refers to an in progress identity with realization, with the possibility to expressing a life choice, not necessarily related to traditional roles. And this cultural model allows the woman to have alternative identities in parallel to wife and mother without sense of guilt. As the woman represents the inferior and weak gender, so is the same for immigrant. The foreigner is the one who asks for help, the weak identity that must be helped. If on the one hand, the immigrant is described as a different person only with respect to physical characteristic, on the other hand, he is represented as different person to defend against, because the stranger is a possible threat to one's own territory. And in this latter case, the foreigner is the enemy. The image of war that is described in the data explains the idea of a foreigner as a destructive dimension that arouses fear. The immigrant, understood as a stranger, generates fear because he questions our certainties. The stranger put him in a position to re-evaluate the element taken for granted. For example, who we are. I conclude, and I'm fast with this statement by Telfner. All people who come from behind the border suggest the existence of a pluriverse, which questions the uniqueness of collective representation and value system, weakening the certainties of identity. Thank you very much for your time. I stop the share screen. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. And now?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rollo. I think it's my time to
Yes.
have the floor now. I'm Alert Chevalier, Associate Professor from the University of Arts. And first of all, I'd like to say that this Adriatic-Ionian Festival of Intangible Heritage is about sharing. And as we discussed before the session officially commences, we had a lot to learn from each other and a lot to share from each other. And what we didn't discover and we didn't find in pre-session suddenly was exposed when the session has started. I would like to remember what Professor Longo said before. He saw Albania or the coast of Albania from his window in the fourth floor, in his house in the fourth floor, but Albania was far away. I'd like to resume that as Italians say, c'è il mezzo il mare, or if I'm allowed to translate that in English, there is a sea between us, which mounts for the effort that you have to make to go on foot on the sea to reach the other country or the other person or the other topic or the other ideas that other people try to divulge or to present to you. And sharing those thoughts, Professor Longo and also Professor Isoni, I discovered something new. We have a common friend, Professor Isoni, because Ayrton Karste is a very good friend of mine, and he says hello. I wrote him about you talking to him, talking for him, and he's a guy who is really smart and very knowledgeable. Is originally from the south, and he lived in Shkodra. Yes, you're right, and he knows both things about what's happening about the canon or canone or canon in south of Albania and also in the north of Albania, because he also specializes in law. And being different and being equal, as we talked also in the press session, I should find myself quoting quoting again Professor Longo, who said, "We find ourselves in same processes or processes." And yes, if we are subjected to the same conditions, we often find ourselves in the same spiral of actions, being Italian, being Montenegrin, or being Albanian, or being Chinese, for as long as I'm concerned, because as I talked in press session with all of you, the same thing that we spoke about the burnesh, the woman that turns to male, which is one of the topics of the canon in Albania, for the family not being able to produce the males. We find it also in Mulan, a story which comes from China. So societies and people, maybe they live in different places and different times, but often subjected to the same conditions or ways of thinking, they often represent or they act in the same way, not much different from what's happening in the story of Mulan with living ones, Burneshas, that actually live in Albania, that were not married, and they're dressed like themselves like men, and they can be able to join the men's stables, kuvend, like a sort of parliament, and have a say where the other women are not allowed in this position. Also speaking, Dr. Risoni speaking about Sardinia and the similarities that they find there in the blood feud and blood benches about Montenegro and Albania and Sardinia. Maybe things are not so different from us, because I can say that relatives of my mother's family, they left Albania in the 30s, and we know they live in Sardinia, but we lost contact with them. And maybe that kind of approach was because they were similarly, they maybe left Albania for blood vengeance, for example, but they found the same ways of conducting everyday life more acceptable in Sardinia, and they lived there all their life. And which brings us to how people regulated their everyday lives, and as we have presented, Kanun has done so for the much part of the Albanian history, and later was abolished but not uprooted. There are two kind of views about the existence of Kanun, which one of which says the Kanun as something that keeps us behind and doesn't let Albanian people progress, and the other one, which I think it's more realistical one, was that kind of way and judiciary possibility to regulate the everyday life. And I belong to the second category, which I don't see Kanun as totally inappropriate and problematic. So the principles of Kanun, they say that are from the late Bronze Age. So the tradition, the oral tradition of taking forward laws was made in that epoch. And it was clear that in a stateless period, people needed to regulate their everyday life and to have common sense and to have equality among each others. One way of doing so was Kanun. And also respecting others, as Dr. Rollo presented in his presentation, we see the strangers as source of fear. It doesn't happen in the Kanun. In the Kanun, they say that the house is of the wanderer or the outsider and of the god. So every good Albanian who abided to the laws of Canon, it was obligated to be very open about the strangers and the foreign migrations maybe that come in their area, and also offering them protection, not abusing them. And often the blood feud started because someone else chasing down a fugitive of blood vengeance passing by my region took revenge in our region, in my region, and the people, the Kanun was specific. It was not the family of the victim who should retake the blood, but it was the village where the killing happened that should subject the vengeance on the family of those who killed, in because they did so, killing the other person in open streets or open roads in my village, in my region, in my area. They contradicted the Kanun. Let's keep in mind also that this kind of seems that perpetuates the blood, but in a way we find examples in Kanun that entire villages are uprooted, not being able to produce shelter and food and protection to outsiders coming to their area, or not being able to protect them. And in reality, in this time of stateless period, it was a regulator to bring down the blood feud. And after, with the King's Dog, which tried to implement some new measures like blood taxes. So you were allowed to take revenge, or the family who killed someone of your own, but you have to pay a blood tax, which was a big amount of money. And if you cannot kill in your attempt your adversary, you have to pay a wounding tax. You have to be present with the fact that those taxes were very high amounts paid in gold, which meant that really poor family, which presented the most part of those who were involved in blood feuds, were unable to provide such amount of money. And right away, you find a decline in ways that people try to kill each other, because it was impossible for them, which will be punishable by the canon in the other hand, to take revenge. So that part of canon was actually good, or trying to diminish the blood feud was actually good. Perpetuation of it was not really good. And we speak again in a time of state periods. after 1912, when the Albanian states were formed, and etc., etc., or the state. And we see a decline, a total decline, very rare bloodshed and blood vengeances in that period. But that way, the policy of taking out terror with terror didn't work out, because it didn't uproot the basis formations of where the blood feuds, blood vengeance come. And the worst of it happened after the 90s with the deformation of the canon. Before the 1945, after the liberation, before the liberation of the Albania from the Germans in the World War II, there were such as committees or bayraks, which are the flag bearers. So the villages, many villages are united under a flag bearer, some kind of region. And those bayraks or bayraktars, the flag bearers, there were the council that adjudicated the way that the right goes. You have right to vengeance your blood or not. You were in the right or you were in the wrong. Those institutions, after the 45, dissolved completely. And what we are left with newly democratic states in the 90s of Albania, which sees suddenly an uprise in the bloodshed and blood vengeance, especially in the north of Albania, because as I said before, was not uprooted. The real causes and the real mentality of blood vengeance was not uprooted during the communism. And the deformations came in the way of killing women, which is not traditionally, or the canon prohibits it at all, which was kind of like, you can see it as the good ways of canon, but it was bad because it transformed the woman in just a workhorse, a workforce or a workhorse, because the men were all the time confined in their kulas, in their villas of stone. All the work had to be done by women. It was not allowed to kill children, and now it happens. We have even cases of women killed for blood vengeance here in Albania, which was not in the original canon, and also children killed, and most problematic, hundreds and hundreds of children that are isolated now to be to preserve their own life against those deformations of canon. And making the emphasis on those institutions which implemented and which oversaw and regulated canon. I, in the beginning of this project, told Pietro Guralumi, my colleague from Event Center, a very, very touching story which happened in the city of Shkodra, which goes like this. There are two kids brought together during their childhood, and when they come 18 years old, one of them discovers, by way of people whispering in his ear, that it was really the father of his best friend, which he was brought up, who killed his father 18 years before, when he was just being born as a boy. And he goes to that blood was pardoned, so his granddad and his uncles have made peace with the killer's family, and he was brought up, was raised as a friend with the killer's son. And suddenly the boy decided he wanted to take revenge. And the story is very, very, very nice because he goes to his granddad and his uncles and says, which are three people, two uncles and the granddad, and he says, I want to take revenge. And they say that we made peace. It's not more possible. You didn't ask me to make peace. I was little. You didn't ask my permission. I am 18 now, and I want to take revenge. Granddad says, with what? With this bullet, he says. And granddad takes this bullet, opens it up, and divides the powder in 4 pieces. Takes out one piece and says, this is my part, and takes out 2 other pieces. These are 2 other parts, your uncle's. And 1/4 of this bullet, it's for you. So if you can kill with that much powder, then go ahead and kill it. So those mentalities and those institutions were good before and were uprooted, the institutions, but not the causes. And we found ourselves in the situation which my colleagues will explain better after me. And we found also ourselves in the festival, which is the theater festival of intangible heritage. And we will present later on in the days our work, but I want to remind everybody about something that happened between Verona and Mantova, which Shakespeare wrote, and is Romeo and Julieta. We find 2 families in feud, maybe not in blood feud, maybe in feud for supremacy over the city of Verona, but anyway, we find it. And the last words that the Capulets and Montagues speak above the bodies of Romeo and Julieta are the real reasons why the Shakespeare wrote the tragedy. The force of art to make us come together and see what unites us and not what divides us. Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am Adria, part of Chandra event, and I am part of the research made. And in continuity of alert explained after the wide panorama of this phenomenon, I would like to bring into your attention in short way, because the time is limited, some statistical data regarding to the phenomenon. During our research, as an integrated part of all the research done on the blood feud, we have examined, let us say, 6 main districts in Albania, from which 4 are part of the northern part of Albania, where this phenomenon is very powerful and has repercussions in all life of the country. But mostly this phenomenon is concentrated in the northern part of Albania, or northern east part of Albania, mainly in Shkodra district, where there are a number of large families, including as well children, that are confined themselves to escape retributions. And for that reason, they shy away from the public eye, from the radar of governments, community, and religious authorities. And so based on this, let us say the statistical data sources are not completely reliable, because they these agencies or government or non-government institutions are not giving the clear figures on this phenomenon. But as main districts where this phenomenon is higher than the other districts is Shkodra and Kukas, where there are a lot of families confined in total isolation. And for that reasons, during the chaotic demographic movements of population, a lot of families have been moved from this district, and they have been gone to other districts as Durrës and Tirana. In Shkodra's districts, we see that a lot of family went outside the district, and some of them abroad. But in these two main districts, Shkodra and Kukas, we see the large number of children that are not frequenting or partially frequenting the education system. But the most problematic way is remaining Shkodra above all these districts. As well, Kukas is, let us say, in the same portion with Shkodra. Leja district after that is Leja district, where all the population during to a democratic system came. We see a movement of families from this northern part and rural areas, northern mountains, have moved to Leja district, and they carrying out their problems and following the vindicative tradition of the blood feuds in a new concept, in a new geographical context. As well, in Dibra district or region, we have a lot of families. So the phenomenon is still negative, but in these districts, the number of children that are not frequenting or partially frequenting the education system, let us say, is lower than in Shkodra and Kukas too. As we said, due to this chaotic demographic movement of population, we see that a lot of families have moved to new districts as Durrës and Tirana. In these districts, there are a lot of units, and the number of children that are not frequenting or partially frequenting the education system is low. Let us say 1 children, according to statistics based on the table that you will see in the research given to you. As well, Tirana as a capital of Albania, after years 19 has had very chaotic demographic movements, and a lot of people came from these regions, from this district, and these movements have created a new components of Tirana's Tirana city. But as well, in these movements, these families have brought a lot of problematics regarding to blood feuds. But from our research, the findings show that some of the municipal units have not reported cases with blood feuds. Let us say that there are a big number of families in blood feud, from which 8 of them have moved abroad, and families went outside of the district is 12, and the number of children that are frequenting or partially frequenting the education system is low. So this is a short panorama, in fact, based on these statistical data sources, to show how this phenomenon has been developed during this year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adria. I'm Pietro Guralumi, and I take the floor. But firstly, I would like to mention that we have actually only one woman here into this meeting, and I wish her, let's say, I would like to congratulate her for the 8th of March, for the Day of the Women. And also we had, in the beginning, we had also another colleague from the University of Salento and one from ITI, I think that were ladies. So I take the opportunity just to congratulate to them, them this special day.
Thank you, Peter.
Coming back to our the reason of our round table, the reason we are here, what we did in the past months of this project, as Professor Longo said, as Professor Isoni said, as other colleagues, relators said, that we are closed, but not so close. We know, but we don't know definitely many things. And this research, I think that after its publication, will help all of us, but others also, other people also around us, to better understand these phenomenon. And to what is, let's say, related to the Albanian part, the blood feud, this research is the key to open and to be coherent with the artistic part of this production, of this project. So this project has a scientific part, a scientific research, data gathering, analyzing, and a product. But for what? In order to produce the new artistic works that will, let's say, be part of our festival. And that's why I see in this research some of the elements that were important for the Albanian part, let's say, to create the productions. I would like to share with you 3 minutes, not more, some pictures from the visits and interviews made during the research, from focus groups, in order also to give a little bit of rhythm to our discussion, and also to project the future of activities that University of Arts and Cendra event are producing in the framework of this festival. So I would ask you just to, so I will share with you some 3 minutes of photo slideshow, but with also some background, musical background. So just a few minutes of written music and pictures in order to better show what from what we got some inspiration, from what we got some how to say material, what is going that will be going to be produced on the stage in the next day during the festival. So what else? I would like also to share with you a part of my presentation, which is just showing some topics that from this project or from this research, trying to understand, to analyze, to make our, let's say, commitment to the research. We found that the 3 or 4 elements of the blood feud effect or negative effect is once in the fundamental human rights, because people has the right to live, not to be killed for reasons that are not reasons in nowadays. But on the other side, we have families that are self-isolated, and as Adlira, my colleague, told before, so we have people that maybe they change the area, but they are still isolated, locked in. Some of them are not speaking, they are not declaring their place where they stay, and the data is very difficult to be, let's say, concretely, let's say, exactly with the numbers, but we have families where when let's say there is one man that maybe he's guilty for doing let's say killing, or let's say the actions, and the rest of the family is the victim, is they are the children and the wives. And in this understanding, the general understanding for the social situation of these families, we have the kids that are locked and they don't follow the system, the school system. But on the other side, there are the women that have to do everything, let's say, from the house maintenance, from the works in the agriculture, so everything, they have to do everything. So and these arguments, these topics coming from the research, from the visits, from the interviews, from the discussions with various focus groups that we had in Pogradec as let's say, obligatory area of the project, but also in Shkodra, where is the main the focus of this problem. We got some, let's say, conclusions that we are bringing them into the art. And so what's next is that we are coming after a few days, we're coming to our productions. That the first one is verses and sounds, which is the poetries are made by children that are already locked in. So those are the poetries, their creations that are already published, and they will be performed not only by professionals, but also from small children coming from the areas, from Shkodra and from Pogradec. And the second one is the film. On 20th, we have the film, which is really telling us a story. One of this numerous stories of blood feud in Albania. It's an original film. The first, let's say, the premiere will be in this festival. So it's just a production done appositely for this project. And the next day, the 21st of March, is the drama production, which also is a new production. The premiere is on the 21st, so it's not prepared in advance. It's not something that was done in the years before. Everything is new, and the inspiration of these works comes from the research. That's why I found the role of this research very central, crucial, in order to better understand the phenomenon and to try to act the artist for the catharsis of the society. So through the art, to try to intervene in a catharsis effect with the society in the several strains of this society that has in the region of Shkodra, Kukuz, or Leja, but in all Albania. And if we will be successful, our works maybe can circulate in other countries as a share of this success of this project. At the end, so I would like only to share with you, but also to thank the big effort made by the whole partnership for us as Albania partners. We had the first of the difficulties to maintain the rhythm of the project, but in 1 year we try to create all the conditions for the choral continuity of the project with all the partners. I would like also to thank the colleagues from the University of Art, Professor Alert and Adria, but also you, Professor Mariano, Professor Isoni, Fabio Tolledi, Simona Rollo, and also the JS or the authority, the managing authority, that gave us this opportunity to work together and to be focused in the future and to better share the relations between social life and cultural life into this space of Adriatic Sea. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, also, I think that it's my floor now. Thank you very much for all the intervention. Also, I'm speaking like president of the Italian Center of International Theatre Institute and vice president worldwide of International Theatre Institute of UNESCO. I think that it's very important to speak and to be very more precise about something that we have said is also something connected with the spirit, with the also the goals of this project. That is the mutual understanding in an area so very close and also in the meanwhile not very well known. We don't know each other, and we have just started to work. And also I think that this effort has to find more other opportunities to enter deeply in something. I want to say something. 2 days ago in the festival, we have seen and presented the Mater Medea performance. And I think that there is a deep sense in this. The figure of Medea is a very, very precise in a certain way to maintain also the aspect of the intangible cultural heritage. Because Medea is the figure of the stranger, the woman that arrives from the far east or near east, but always very far for our construction, for the building of the enemy. In the work that I have conducted in these last 20 years in theater in conflict zones, we have found always one aspect very, very simple. Generally, we can make war against someone because we are not able to recognize and to know the other. If I know someone, it's more difficult to start to have a war against someone. There is a process of a generalization of the figure of enemy. There is the first project of ITI worldwide in conflict zones area was, the title was very precise, was My Unknown Enemy. The enemy is unknown, and also we create a generalization very, very often that is not able to see and to watch and to approach the similarity. There is a text of the anthropologist, Italian anthropologist, very important, that we have hosted many times, is Cesare Remotti. The title of one of these last work is Somiglianze, the similarities. We have worked in these last 30 years in a dimension of the construction of the identity that always create a fight. Also, I think that we can find another aspect very important. When we start to create a fight between identities, there is always a very strange story about the pure blood, the purity of the blood. The ethnic identity strong create a mere identity with no contamination and so on. In this way, we can find many aspects of the political speech where he wants to create a distinction, a difference, fighting difference. And I'm sure that theater is a very, very important tool, and the intangible cultural heritage is a very important tool to overcome the conflict. I want to say just few examples. You have mentioned Alert, for example, the Second World War, and you have said the liberation of 45 against the German Nazis. But the invasion, you know, and we know very well, started by Italian people, by Italian army. Is a problem in which we have to be able to recognize. Also the same in Montenegro. I'm mentioning the area that involved this project. Montenegro, Italy, and Albania. We have a memory also of fight, of conflict. It's not only a smooth memory, something not connected with the dimension of dialogue, exchanges, but also with dimension of conflict, invasion, military stories, and so on. This is a very deep story. It's connected also, and also I'm sure in this that Professor Isoni completely agree. There is a story about the relationship between the Italian side of Adriatic Sea and the Ottoman Empire. This is a story. This is a silent story. We had a very strong relationship also during the Ottoman Empire. And also there are the story of piracies, for example, or it's a very important story, this one, that we can restart to tell together. Also with the Department of University of Lecce, we have another European project with Zakynthos in Greece, in the Ionian island. Zakynthos was a seat very important of piracy during 16th and 17th and 18th century too. And this is the common story that we have is also a story that we need to rewritten again, because it's a silent story in which we can find contradictory elements also, elements of not peaceful relationship, also peaceful relationship and very rich. For example, I can say by my side, strictly connected with the performing arts, we have a story very important of the tournée of the actor in the beginning of 19th century in all the Adriatic side. And this is another history, is another silent history. I'm sure that the opportunity of intangible cultural heritage is made by this history that we have restarted to write together. In this, I think that it's very essential also what I started to do Simone Rollo with this research, and also something that said Professor Longo at the beginning. We have to find many other way in a sociological point of view to find the construction of the otherness between two sides of our sea. It's very important aspect, and so I think that it's a very fruitful research, this one. We have just started to do our first steps in this direction, but I'm sure that we have to continue to work in this way and also to have a more concrete exchange. You know, the project was to have artistic residencies in all the 3 countries. This is an aspect very important to increase and also to give the tool to find a very deep, silent, but so important history that we have in common. Thank you very much. There are some observations that we have found on YouTube and Facebook online event. On the chat, alert if you can, it's for you, I think, the first one.
I read that. So we should explain that by writing, or
no, if you can say, because we are recording, it's something that remains.
There are two pillars on the hospitality on the Canon, which the house is of the owner and of the god. I'm sorry, so the house belongs to the god and to the person who comes in the house, not my house. And the second one is the extending of invitation to enter in the house is book a krup a zemer, which means bread and salt and heart. So even if the family was poor and has no meaning to offer a good feast to the host, to the person which comes to the house, to the guest. Anyway, the house was open for the guest, and we should also understand the roots of this one. Those are remote areas which were not so much traveled, and the guest which comes to the house is seen as a deity because he even brings the news from the world and the surroundings. And was a very strong tradition, this on hospitality. And moreover, which I mentioned a little bit before, were the protected roads, or the roads in Bessa, the main roads that connected every village or every district, or the barracks that I mentioned before were in Bessa. So the travelers were meant to face no harm were traveling in those major roads, unpaved roads, but were major roads that connect in the regions. And also the way people treated by escorting the people that came as guests in their house, if they were in danger, or they didn't knew the area, was part of this hospitality. Another thing which I have found, not that I'm a profound studier of or scholar of Kanun, but which I found very, very particular, was something about those roads. Lately, in all the protests we see around the world, and even here in Albania, for different reasons, political reasons, or civil unrests, or etc., that we find those main roads that are blocked by the protesters, and everything goes haywire because all the other people has to find alternate routes, and the chaos ensues. Instead, those roads in Kanun, those main roads, were protected, and those were the roads of everybody, not just the people who can go out and express their frustration. And it was not permitted in any way to block the main road, or it was not permitted for the main road to go disrupt or damaged. And if the main road was damaged, they were to pass the road from the nearby's property, which means the sotolineation, how to say this in underlining was on the community and the communications. Those roads were meant to be safe for everyone, were meant to be for everyone, and to connect people with each other for any meanings they use those roads. This is also, I think I see this as a deep sense of the hospitality, creating those safe heavens for everyone. Let's not take much time on that. I hope was clear on what I explained.
Okay, I will try to give an answer to the question about the role of women in career practices, and I'm happy to date back to a definition of a person that came from Sardinia, but he was of Albanian origins, Antonio Gramsci. And here we have the classical demonstration of the difference between the society of learned people and the society of people that didn't study. And the Maccaria power and the Maccaria practices are the expression of women that were not allowed to have a classical instruction. So they stay at home to have to behave like housewives. And so they have to find different ways of expression of their sensibility and culture, popular culture, but culture. So Maccaria power is a classical tradition of a culture that is oral, not written, and of rural origin, so born and grown up in the countryside, and the expression of also of like we can use a term that is modern, but it's very adapt very well to this condition. It's like a social and political also apartheid towards women. Women are excluded by decision making and decision adoption, and so they have to find different ways of expression. Maccaria power is a way to influence the fate of things. So they are convinced, and people around them are convinced, that women have a real power about the destiny and the fate of people. And this attitude is closely linked also to another Salentine phenomenon from Salento, that is the tarantism. So, there is like a neurotic side of this women condition that is obliged to find different ways of expression, and one could be a neurotic way and the other could be a magician way. Maccaria practice is a magician way that allows women to be involved in decision-making process and also to be the real character of this society. There is another feature to underline in this occasion, that is the traditional interpretation of the southern Italian society as a paternalistic society. I can say that in Salento, but also in Sardinia, we have a strong matriarchal society, because women are the real holder of power inside families, but also in society, in a condition that it's very, very strange to understand for us, but it's in the also it's important to underline this point in this occasion and on this day. I think that the formal parification of women with men, it could be a trap for women that in the past have a power that hidden power, but a power that was very strong inside families and had the opportunity to influence decision in a way that it's very difficult to understand. Usually during my courses, I use one similarity to describe the role of politics and of magistrature in the society. I say always that the politics is a masculine element, and it's convinced to have an influence on society, but it's an influence very limited in society. Judicial power, conversely, is a hidden power that is very and most important for our lives. And I say that it's a feminine power because it's a hidden power, but it's a real power, an actual power on our lives. I hope that could be clear with the question.
Okay, I think that we have finished with I have seen the chat of alert, and also perhaps for the next time we also have a discussion on the media myth that it's very interesting. It's very strong matter, I'm sure. So Alessandro, if you want to give the greetings to everyone.
Okay, I'm very happy of this occasion. I thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to know features and aspects of our society. And we will see you on 29th of March for the final session of this festival. And for the moment, thank you very much for your collaboration and for your kind cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
And see you.
See you.
Miropavshim.
Miropavshim.